My name is Sara Westhead. I'm a former journalist. I am now a teacher and librarian in the middle school system, but I am also a parent. And so tonight I'm talking not as a professional. I am not a doctor. I'm not an expert, but I am a mom. I'm a mom to two kids. Tommy is 15 and is in high school, and then I have a son, Johnny, who's 11. And you're going to get to know him pretty well tonight. Well, a little bit about him tonight, because Johnny has high-functioning autism. So if you can begin. All right, Johnny was born a month early. We spent a day in the NICU, but basically things went pretty normally. He developed normally. We had an issue with speech. He was diagnosed with what we call dyspraxia or apraxia of speech. So his language is very garbled, but other than that, we thought things were pretty normal at the very beginning, which is very common with, you'll see. Johnny is now going to be 12. He is starting M2. He's 7th grade. We're doing online school this year. He's what I consider an artistic genius. You'll see some of his work in a little while. He's an animal whisperer. He's fantastic. If you have a rough animal, he's the one to call. He is quite the hermit. He likes to hang out in his room, but he has autism. Autism spectrum disorder has a variety of problems. One of the biggest things is social interaction, difficulty with communication, especially nonverbal communication, social skills, repetitive behaviors. All of those are problems that people with autism have. However, it is important to remember that if you have met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism. It is a spectrum disorder. We often think of it as a long linear thing, but really it's a radial. So one child may have really weak motor skills, but actually okay with their perception and executive functioning. Or they may be really, really bad. We all, with one particular thing. We often think about, we have a stereotype in our mind of the Rain Man. The kids who are knocking their heads against a wall, shaking their hands, doing circles, but they're not all like that. Not every child is a math genius. Not everybody can remember random dates from out of everywhere. And just a quick note is people who have autism are considered neurodiverse. Those of us who do not have autism, we would be called neurotypical. So if I say that word, you know what I'm talking about. Neurotypical is people who have developed naturally, normally, as we would expect. High-functioning autism is also known as Asperger's syndrome. They are basically the same thing, and it doesn't show up like regular autism. That stereotype in your mind is completely not what you would think. Okay, basically these people mostly seem to be a little weird. They don't know how to have conversations. They can be extremely literal. They might be overwhelmed by the things around them. They hate really noisy things. They don't go to crowded events. They can be overly direct. If they think you look fat, they'll tell you you look fat. Okay? 1 in 68 people are considered to be on the autism spectrum. But with high-functioning autism, people typically are not diagnosed at least until the age of 8. In fact, we probably are people in this room who may be on the spectrum. They're high-functioning autistics, but because they're older, they were never diagnosed. And I just figured I'd give you some faces of some famous people who are on the autism spectrum. Now here's Johnny. This was probably about 1. He's always been obsessed with one thing at a time. Once it was cars, now it's 5 Nights at Freddy's video games. Delayed speech. He liked to line his stuff up. Even now, he will not look at you in the eye when you're talking to him. This is some of his art right here. He has meltdowns. He has severe anxiety. He has shutdowns where he just completely doesn't do anything. He curls up into a ball. He has a hard time understanding idioms. When he was little, I told him said it was raining cats and dogs. He literally ran out to the window to look for the cats and dogs. He is extremely literal. At Dolphin Quest, he was told to lay down on the dock. So he laid down on the dock. Everybody else was up on their elbows. He always is in jeans and a t-shirt or his favorite pajamas. You'll see in a minute. He absolutely detests change. So these are all some of the things that we saw. But that's just Johnny. That's just the way he is. That was the problem. There was something wrong. There was something not quite right. A lot of people didn't believe that we were concerned, why we should be concerned. But our doctor did. He went and got diagnosed at Child and Adolescent Services, which has an autism clinic now. But even after the diagnosis, people didn't want to believe us. That's just the way he is. But you know what? Now that we know, we can help him better. We know how to provide the right support that he needs. And for me, it's meant research. I'm a natural researcher. As a librarian, that's what you want to do. I want to encourage him to promote his strengths as an artist. He has a need. When it comes to people with autism, you need to have teachers who are fully understanding. We've had some fantastic teachers through the years who have said working with him made them better teachers, but there were also teachers who didn't quite get it. He did great in primary school. Middle school was a nightmare for him. He couldn't cope with the anxiety. We've used a lot of different kinds of therapy, from writing at Windreach, art therapy. At home, I have to speak very literally, tell him exactly what I want him to do, don't use idioms. And we've recently added a new member of our family, Wicket, who is going to be his emotional support dog. So he will, if you see me with this dog, and my son's probably not too far away. But when you meet someone with high-functioning autism, recognize that they're not being rude. Their brains are wired differently. So if you keep these things in mind and you keep your language simple, don't automatically scold that child. Recognize, I got to tell them what to do right next time. They just don't know. They don't get it intrinsically. Get to know their specific needs, get to know their specific interests, because that's what they want to talk about. Johnny's repetitive behavior, one of them is talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. It's more than I ever wanted to know about this horror video game. Give them time to process. Don't expect them to come up with an answer right away. Don't expect them to use social norms. This is a big one. We like to say good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Well, for a child who can't even look you in the eye and is afraid to talk to you, they're not going to say that. Just roll with the punches. And use your words. Don't expect them to understand that you're getting tired of hearing them talk about this. Johnny, not enough. That's enough right now. We'll talk about it later. Ask about sensory issues. My child is extremely sensitive to touch. In fact, I haven't had a hug from him in over 3 years. Don't lie to them. They'll never forgive you. They can't lie either. But they also make fantastic employees, too. They're really hard to interview, but yeah, they're loyal. So any questions? What were some of the first things that we knew something was wrong? Well, when he was really little, he acted like a 2-year-old. So it was kind of hard. But it was when, as he got older and moved through primary school, that we recognized he wasn't maturing like his older brother. Having an older brother who was Mr. Social really helped us understand. He continued to play beside his friends instead of playing with his friends for a long time. There was a repetitive behaviors. That lining things up lasted until about 7 or 8. He used to sniff his hands and sniff his shirt. That was another one of his repetitive behaviors. So all these things, obviously, it's not something a normal kid would do. How does medication? We have avoided medication most of the time, almost all this time. We have had to use some medication recently to help with severe anxiety, which we hope to get off of pretty soon. I don't believe that any medication led to it or anything like that either, if that's what you're implying. Okay. Any other questions? There are some support systems. It's limited because there's only so many people who can do so many things. There is an urgent need for greater awareness. There is an urgent need for insurance companies to pay for more services rather than limiting it. Also, we generally have a poor understanding of high functioning autistics. So there's more support services for kids with greater needs, or requiring ongoing regular care, whereas a lot of people unfortunately have left the island to take their kids to schools and systems where there are teachers and support workers and doctors who can better support the specific needs of that child. Yeah. One more?
Hi, I have a question. First of all, I didn't hear the last word that you said in your presentation. I was wondering if you could articulate it more clearly.
Okay.
And I also wondered, how have you had to accommodate your son in your house and enhance the things that he enjoys?
Well,
I did like how you called him a genius. I thought that pretty much sums it up.
Right. The last thing I said was that they make fantastic employees. They're impossible to interview, but they are extremely loyal and dedicated workers. Many of them are fantastic at tech. My son is self-taught at Photoshop. That image that you saw, he drew in Photoshop. He's now teaching himself digital animation. Self-taught, watching videos on YouTube. At home, one of the things they say is that with a kid with autism is least autistic when they are in their room, because they are in their comfort zone. It's when everything else comes around them that become more stressed out, and therefore a lot of those behaviors start to appear, especially if they're high functioning. So at home, he lives in his cave. We call his room the cave because it's in the downstairs. He does have a window and a door and all that good stuff. But we call it the cave, and when he's down there in his very stinky, smelly pajamas that he won't let me wash, but once a week, then he's actually does really, really well at home now. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah.